So this week we are going to begin a topic called climate fiction. So this is also known as cli-fi for short. And we are going to use one text called Through the Arc of the Rainforest to think about climate fiction, to think about its purpose. But there is a chance that you've already read climate fiction before coming to this book. So if you've read anything by Margaret Atwood, for example, something like Avatar to some degree could be considered climate fiction. Those are all pieces of media or books that deal with the themes that we're talking about. So a focus on climate that includes realism, science fiction, and the supernatural, a setting that undergoes drama or has crisis. So the plot and the characters revolve around this crisis, this climate crisis typically. And one of the purposes of climate fiction is to help people prepare for the inevitable climate realities. And so that's one of the arguments for it, is that there is a lot of anxiety around climate change, and a lot of the problems have already begun to start, but we also don't know where climate change is going to take us. So we don't know the levels of, say, weather disasters. We don't necessarily know the levels of famine. And so we don't know how this will impact animals across, and then with that change plants and ecosystems. And so there's a lot of anxiety, and so much so that there is a generation of people who are choosing not to have children because of climate change and the anxieties and the difficulty of knowing what's going to be there for upcoming generations. And a lot of different literary movements come out of a general cultural, zeitgeist or feeling. And we saw that with Romanticism, for example. So that was very much based in a political atmosphere. It was based in a cultural atmosphere. And then we see things like modernism or postmodernism that are very much based, again, in the industrial realities of the world and the Western world, but the world. They're also very much based in the technology that has emerged and is still emerging. And so climate fiction is one of those organic things that has come up as culture right now tries to reckon with the realities of climate change. And so we see that in Through the Arc of the Rainforest, the different ways that cli-fi is dealing with, these realities, but then also unrealities to some degree. And that's one way that you could think about cli-fi, is that it's trying to play with the idea of, okay, what will be our reality? It feels like an unreality because we've never been here as a human race before, right? So it's completely new. And so that's why you'll see the realism and the science fiction and the supernatural all grouped together. And sometimes it can be called magical realism. It's a type of realism that's written in a way that seems like just a very realistic scene. It's told in a very straightforward way, but then there's something like very supernatural or magical or spiritual going on, but it's talked about in a very objective way. So the characters, we see this in the characters in Through the Arc of the Rainforest. All of them have some sort of really kind of out there quirk. And this is where you see the unreality, but it's very much part of the characters' reality. They live their lives with these different quirks about them. And so as we're reading Through the Arc of the Rainforest, first of all, just enjoy, even though it's cli-fi and there's disasters, a lot of times it's meant to be funny. It's kind of that dark humor that takes something that we struggle with, that we're scared of, that we don't understand, and tries to put humor to it as a way to understand. So that's a very natural human response. So enjoy it, but then also think, what is this narrative propelling me to think about or propelling me to do? So if you want, we can go all the way back to how we do critical thinking, that 4-step Lectio Divina practice of, okay, what's literally happening in the text? And that's helpful in cli-fi too, right? What's literally happening? And then what does this symbolize, or what allegory do I see here? Are there any metaphors? And then think about, how can I reflect on what this means for me? And then finally, is there an action I want to take after reading this? So enjoy the novel, and I'm excited to see what you all think.